All right. So nice. So when Mrs. Keegan asked me to come to this Yomiyun or whatever you want to call it, alumni thing. So she said, like, to keep in mind, obviously there's going to be a span of ages and stages of people and all. And therefore she said, like, she was asking me to address Shavuot and Kabbalat HaTorah from a perspective, broad aged, broad stage and whatever. And she, Baruch Hashem, we have some current Shana and all. Like, you know, at some points in our lives, the Shavuot might look like, you know, we can stay up and learn at night, and so to speak, be Makabel Torah in that way, you know, through Torah learning. And then, you know, as life progresses, for Hashem, with, you know, for good reason, then Shavuot and Kabbalat Torah looks a little bit different, and you might be up all night with the baby, but you also might be up all day with the other kids. Yeah? So, you know, what's a broader way of connecting with the concept of Kabbalat Torah that kind of spans through all? And so that's really what I was thinking about, and I wanted to share a message that's just like exactly like that, like through all ages and stages of how we can be Makabel Torah. What does it mean to really receive Torah, to be a member of Klal Yisrael standing at Har Sinai on that regular basis, and certainly to celebrate that as Shavuot is coming up and as we're counting the last days of Spirit Omer. And I was thinking about a vart that I once heard from Rav Israel Tauber that is like actually one of my favorites. I connect to it very much. And Rabbi Tauber explains that obviously, you know, in a theoretical sense, but according to halacha, according to the Gemara, it says that a man can be mekadesh like many women at one time, right? Like officially a man can marry more than one woman, right? And so theoretically, the part of the wedding ceremony that's called the kiddushin part, a man can be mekadesh, let's say 10 women at one time, meaning, for example, 10 women will walk down the aisle towards the chuppah. He will give a ring that's shava pruta, enough for 10 women. You know, we'll have that chuppah part of ceremony of the wedding. And theoretically, like the same two Eidim, boom, this man was just mekadesh 10 women at once. Like, you think about it, like, wow, that would save a lot of wedding money because you can get like one photographer, one hall, you know, everything like that, all worked out. And boom, there's 10 wives now. There's 10 Ishes, right? All in one boom. Again, this is theoretical because obviously now we have the Tachana of Gershom, so we only know. Okay, fine, but that's not the point. But this part of the wedding ceremony is really the Hasten's act, right? The Hasten is Mekadesh the Kabbalah. So he was Mekadesh 10, fine, okay, very good. That's not a full marriage. Then there's the other part of the marriage ceremony, which is the Nisuit. That's the part that the Kala is active, and that's really what consummates the marriage. They're not fully married yet until we have the Nisuin part. And that part is the part of the Kala, when the Kala goes with the Chassan into the Yichud room. And through that, she's giving herself to her husband alone, and she's dedicating her entire life to this one and only man, right? It's you and me and me and you, and that's it. Now, this part of the marriage, right, the Nisuin part of the marriage, clearly it's Yichud, right? So that means that can only happen one woman at a time. It doesn't matter that 10 came down to the chuppah, right? But each woman is going to have to be miyached with the man one at a time. Each one will have their own yichud room with the man, with their own two separate eidim, right, for each one. Says of Taber, when we relate this, we can use this as a mashal for what's happening at Kabbalat HaTorah at Mount Har Sinai. At Har Sinai, there were 600,000 Jews, the men, so plus the women, plus the children, so tons. That was the moment that Hashem as them was Mekadesh all of Klal Yisrael as being my nation, right? Wife to Hashem. 600,000 plus, right? All at once, stand at Har Sinai, right? And that's always the mashal that's used. The Shavuot is like the chuppah, it's the wedding of Hashem to Klal Yisrael, right? That's what happens at Har Sinai. We married HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? In this bris. But what's the nisuin part of our marriage? That was the kiddushin. That could be 600,000 at once. But when is the marriage with HaKadosh Baruch Hu consummated? Through the active part of the kala within the story. So the cheder yichud is our personal, private nisyonos, even sometimes yisurim. When each of us individually might feel like so alone and nobody understands what I'm going through, and faced with a challenge that could be every and any challenge, because life is full of challenge. And when we're in challenges, that brings with us feelings of isolation. It's lonely when we're going through a challenge, even if it is a challenge of someone else maybe also waited for a shidduch, or also waited for a child, or also is challenged with a particular child, or whatever it is, right? But no two situations are exactly the same, and so there'll always be that feeling of alone. But that's the yichud room of the nisuin with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's when I, as the kala, have the choice to say, I'm going to be mekabel Hashem. I'm going to be mekabel Hashem, accept Hashem and His plan, that it's me and Hashem and me, and I'm going to choose to use this cheder yichud as an opportunity to be mekabel, to come closer to Hashem through this nisayon. And this is what creates and makes a kala to a wife. The kiddushin part of the marriage, the kala. The nisuin part of the marriage is what makes you a wife. More intimate level of wife to husband. And that's what it is, and nobody can do that for you. That the kala has to do with for herself by herself. There's no shaliach. It's only me. It's me and Hashem. And so when we're faced with the challenges of life, overcoming an isayon is being able to lie there in whatever the situation that Hashem sent us. Not that we want it, right? But can I say, I love you, Hashem, even under these circumstances? And I accept that you're giving this to me as an opportunity to build our relationship. The same way as within marriage. Like, yeah, of course, we have our disagreements, we have our arguments, but can I look at them as opportunities to build the relationship, to work it through? So can I look at these life circumstances that may be thrown at me, that I have to come to Hashem and work it through, as the opportunity of building my relationship with Hashem? Because nobody else can make a person, whether it's sickness, other pain, again, like if it's waiting for marriage, if it's waiting for children, if it's a challenged marriage, if it's challenged children, if it's parnasa things, right? Like things, so many things, right? But who gave that to us? Nobody else can send that to me except Hashem. Nobody can hurt me, nobody can insult me except for Hashem. And every time that we accept that this is from Hashem, and Hashem is the source of every single one of life's events, happy, sad, exciting, challenging, it's consummating my marriage with Hashem. These are the yichud rooms of Har Sinai. This is what brings the meaning to life, that brings us to the next stage of intimacy, of of our relationship, of our marriage with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, looking at the story of Matan Torah, we all know that, the Midrashim about how when they stood at Har Sinai, right, so Hashem wanted to give the Aseret HaDibros, and indeed Hashem started with the first of the Dibros and the second of the Dibros, right? And then what happens? What does the Medrash say? That after the first two Dibros, Parku Lahem Nishmasa, that everyone fainted. It was so intense. The hearing of the Aseret HaDibros straight from Hashem, it was so overwhelming that Bnei Yisrael couldn't handle it, and so Moshe took it. Right? Now, one of the interesting, even magical things about the Aseret HaDibros is that we see from the wording of the Aseret HaDibros, everything is in singular. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, right? Kaved es avicha v'esnecha. It's all in the singular. And the reason for that is because Hashem gave the Dibros, Hashem gave the 10 Commandments to each of us individually. And that was the idea. That's why it's written in the Yachid. So that we each, as a unique individual, received the Aseret HaDibros in a way that was tailor-made for me. Meaning, okay, we heard it on the level that was applicable to each of us. So let's think about it for a second. There was Yoshua bin Nun standing there, right? He's going to be the next leader of Klal Yisrael. And then there was just a regular 20-year-old sitting there, right? Clearly, the two are on a different level. And the beauty of the giving over of the Aseret HaDibros is that as each neshama stood there, each neshama heard it as it applied to themselves. Each neshama heard it in the applicable to who they were, the level they were. It was like a tailor-made situation. If that was the case, right? So then that brings a big question. Because if it was tailor-made to who I am and my level and my reality, so then why was it so overwhelming to hear the Aseret HaDibros from Hashem? Because theoretically, it's like if the dress is made to size, so then it should be easy to get into it. So if the Aseret HaDibros for little me was theoretically given to me as it suited me, and so there's no reason to be overwhelmed that also Yoshua bin Nun was standing there and he was going to receive Aseret HaDibros on way higher of a level and right? That shouldn't be overwhelming but I was me and Hashem gave it to me as applying to me. Okay? Exactly. That's exactly the question. So why is it that they were so overwhelmed and fainted from this, right? Theoretically. Yes, that's true. So exactly that, what you're saying is exactly what the answer is. If we think about it, it's very deep. It wasn't necessarily even only a little higher, right? Because either it's tailor-made or it's way above. So then if it's way above, it's not tailor-made. The idea is that it was tailor-made, but it was tailor-made to the neshama potential, which is very deep because what that means is that personally shaped to who I potentially am on high neshama level, and Hashem speaking to the neshama that he knows what that neshama is capable of. Now the neshama sees and knows with clarity. These are neshamas that stood there saying Nasa v'nishma, that were each crowned with 2 crowns. Nasa v'nishma. These were lofty neshamas. That's who Hashem was for. And what's amazing is, look what a discrepancy, obviously, that means that there was between what Hashem holds of us, that we can be, that we are, and maybe what we see ourselves as. That was the overwhelm. That was the... Because I was looking at myself over here, but Hashem was saying, no. You're capable of this. You're capable of something amazing. You're the neshama. What does it mean, nasa v'nishma? Nasa v'nishma is I'm accepting everything that Hashem says and does before I even necessarily understand why, because I'm accepting I don't need to know why. That was the clarity of these neshamas. Yeah, so the problem is we're not on that level of that nasa v'nishma neshama that sees that all with clarity. And so again, the gap between might be overwhelming and therefore we could lose it, but that's huge. Because what it means is that every single neshama, and we were all there, so our personal neshama, standing in the places, challenged with the challenges that we are going through on the regular daily basis, from smaller challenges to Khalila, maybe bigger challenges, right? But our neshamas also stood at Harsina. And our neshamas also were makabel Torah. And our neshamas also said nasa v'nishma. We also stood on that level of accepting Hashem with a certain tznimus and emunah and bitachon of that whatever Hashem sends my way, naseh. I'll accept that and I'll do that mission, because if that's what Hashem sent me, it's the mission that I'm supposed to be going through, and I'll grow from it and I'll go higher from it. That's really what Spirit HaOmer is all about. This whole tkufa, it's a time that we're meant to be using to go from where I might be in reality and climb to the place of what my ultimate neshama's potential is by the time we get to Shavuot, by the time we're getting to the day that's celebrating Nasa v'nishma. That's what this counting is. I'm counting up, right? Wasn't that the phrase? Right? We're counting up. We're saying I can get to that place of my neshama's potential. If I work at it one day at a time, I can get to that level of the acceptance of Nasa v'nishma. I will also be part of that choir that said Nasa v'nishma. Now that's all, nice and good and lofty thoughts and wow, okay, we'll accept everything that Hashem gives us and smile with it and everything like that. But okay, what actually happens on the day to day when the fact is, yes, whatever happens in my life, I'm trying to become a better person and work on myself and take steps forward, et cetera, and so to speak, embrace that yichud room with Hashem, that daily yichud room with Hashem. But what happens, with the reality of the days go by and I also fail? My in-laws are coming tonight, and so yesterday I was all stressed out, cleaning my house and getting everything ready, and oh boy, did my kids get the brunt of that stress, right? And of course, what does that make me feel? For the rest of the day, I'm feeling awful and guilty, and what a failure of a day. Bad mother I am, right? So that is all the time. We try to be on higher levels, and we try to work ourselves through, and we try to accept whatever Hashem gives us, and we try to be the best, whether it's daughter, friend, wife, mother that we can be, and we bump into the failures all the time, right? Yeah. So what do we do about that? Let's be practical. What do we do with that? I'm not on that lofty neshama's potential level all the time. Far from it. So really, it all depends how we look at it. It's really a matter of perspective. Failures, yes, they'll happen. Setbacks, yes, they'll happen. For those of you who, are ending off your time here and going to go home, and then you need to adjust back to the realities of home. Yeah, we're planning for maintaining all the levels that we gained in seminary, but then life happens, and so there's setbacks and there's falls. Right? What do we do with that? And so really, it's all a matter of how am I going to look at it? Do I look at the failures as opportunities for growth, or do I wallow in the failure, which really is the greatest failure? Because we will fall, but the falls can be actually a more unique sort of connection with Hashem. I once was listening to a shir by someone whose name is Tani Durval, And I don't even remember like what the mashal was connected to, what the story was connected to, but the story stuck out in my head. She was just telling about one time she came to Israel and she went to Tzfat, and she went to some workshop of the artists, right, in Tzfat, and she went to this workshop of a glass blower. And the woman was showing how you blow glass and you can shape it into different things, and she was making this set of tea lights. And it's this gorgeous, stunning cobalt blue glass. And she's thinking as she's making the first one, like, wow, like this is gorgeous, but it's, you know, handmade art. I'm sure it's like so expensive and, you know, whatever, fine, whatever. She's making the second one, okay, like 2 tea light holders. She's making the second one, and in the middle, the glass cracked. Like, it didn't work. I don't exactly know how you blow glass, but whatever, right? Like something happened and it cracked. And she was like, oh, it's so embarrassing, right? Like the artist is doing a workshop to show how you blow glass, and like, what a blunder, right? And it's embarrassing. Like, everyone's like silent. But the woman just like kept on going, and she started explaining, yeah, that's the amazing thing about the properties of glass, that you could just like meld it back together. You use the heat again and you could put it back together. And indeed, she continued with this second tea light holder, and she finished it off, and you could see the seam where it had cracked. But thinking to herself, like, oh, actually, like, that's good, because I love this gorgeous, like, deep blue. I'm going to ask her how much will it cost now that it's, like, defective, and maybe I'll get it for cheaper. Fine, so we'll have a seam. I'll, like, put it on, I'll turn it around. It'll be the other side, and I'll see it, right? So she goes over to the artist afterwards, and she asked her, like, I know it was, I love the color. How much would you sell it for? And she's like, what do you mean? Like, now it's unique work. Like, go get tea lights from IKEA. Like, they made unique artwork. Now it's more expensive. And really, this can be for us a mashal of how do we look at the cracks, the failures in life. We could choose to completely fall from them, crack, and stay broken. Or we can look at the setbacks as it's like this is an opportunity to meld together even stronger. I don't have to get thrown off course by the mistake or by the fall or by the recognition of like, oh my, I'm so far from where I could be, where I should be, where I was. It doesn't really matter. So the crack happened. Now what? I can choose to get up, to keep going. So I fell. I'll get up after the fall. And yes, that's quite a skill. It's quite a skill to get up and keep going after the failures and the falls and the challenges that we don't do well at and don't, stand strong through. But the temptation to get stuck and stay in the broken or the guilt is huge. And then if we're choosing that way, then we'll never move on. Fine, so I yelled at my kids. You're right, yesterday I was a bad mother. It's true. And it was very hard to get back up again, because like then you just spend the rest of the day, I'm a bad mother, I'm a bad mother, I'm a bad mother, right? But we could get up. So fine, so you didn't die, right? You were so good about davening when you were in seminary, and now, whatever it is. So you didn't daven, fine. But what's the next step? Can I get back up and fix and meld and re-glass, because re-blow, right? When we do that, that is what makes the relationship with Hashem much stronger. It's like the same with any human relationship. The rifts cause opportunities for deeper communication, for greater connection. So how are we going to do that? And we see exactly this idea in the story of Kabbalat HaTorah itself. Bnei Israel, right, we know that they encamped by Har Sinai for 6 days. They got to Midbar Sinai on Rosh Chodesh Sivan, right? And Kabbalat HaTorah, Shavuos, right, is on Vav Sivan. So they encamped there for a good few days before Kabbalat HaTorah. Now, the first day that Bnei Israel got there, Hashem actually did not give them any instructions. That wasn't the Shloshes Yimei Hagbala yet, right? The Shloshes Yimei Hagbala was the 3 days before that they should separate and all the different laws that Hashem gave them in order to build their levels of Kedusha and Tahara to be ready for Kabbalat HaTorah. But for the first few days, it was nothing. Now, we could think, what do you mean? They finally got to Midbar Sinai. Like, come on, let's hit the road. Let's get going. What are we going to do? What are we going to learn? What mitzvahs are we going to do? How are we going to purify ourselves? And no. When they first got there, Hashem said, you were just traveling, rest up. Now we're just going to keep status quo, maintain. Then, was the Shloshes Yimei Hagbala, and of course there was a preparation and purifying and holiness and everything like that. But when they first got there, like huffing and puffing still. Okay, so just rest up. Maintain what you've got. And we see from here that of growth sometimes does look exactly like that, which is, let's be realistic. Where am I holding? Is today a day for me to push forward, or today is just not that day? So let me focus on maintaining what I have, staying strong in what I have, not falling further, whatever it is, right? Hashem didn't command anything. Hashem didn't expect anything of those days, but that also was part of the preparation for Kabbalat HaTorah. It was part of those 6 days at Har Sinai. That means that's part of our growth, is to master that dance between the realism and the idealism, and when to go and when to, maybe I need to rest and stop. And every single part of it, it's part of the building of the relationship. It's part of the receiving of Torah. It's part of the Nasa V'Nishma, every part. And yes, it is a dance. It's back and forth, and sometimes like this and sometimes like that, right? We say every day, Hayom Yom Echad Bomer, Hayom Yom Sheni Bomer, because every day is a day. Whether it's a day of pushing forward or whether it's a day of staying put, it's a day that's worth being counted. And that's really also like the two-sided idea of, right, there's different nuschas. Do we say Ba Omer, right, Hayom Yom Echad Ba Omer? Do we say Hayom Yom Echad La Omer, right? So it is it a day in the Omer? Is it a day in the count to something? And really, it's the same thing. It's both. Because on one hand, every day is a day with its value, whatever it is. Today's the day, and it takes on importance. And on the other hand, every day is a day within a bigger picture. We're working towards something. So it's really both. And you may have all heard the story of Rav Zushya and his brother, the Noam Elimelech. It's such a great story, so it's worth hearing it again for those of you who maybe couldn't. So these two brothers were thrown by the local authorities into jail. Not really, just because they were Jewish, right? They were Jews. And, these great tzaddikim, Rav Zushya and the Noam Elimelech, whatever Hashem does, what are they going to answer? What are they going to say? Gamgo Tova, it's from Hashem. Right, Nasa V'Nishma. I'll be makabel whatever Hashem does for me. So they're thrown into jail. Of course, that means they can't daven with a minyan. How are they going to learn? Whatever. They said, okay, if Hashem put me here and now, this is where I'm meant to be. So I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to make the best of it. This is where we are. They said, okay, fine. So we'll sit in our cells and we'll daven and we'll learn and we'll make the most of it. But then come the guards, and the guards put a bucket of waste into their cell. So, now they can't learn and they can't daven even because they're near the waste. So here they are, being Mekabel Hashem and Nasa V'Nishma. It doesn't matter that we're stuck over here and we can't go to shul, we can't do it. We're gonna daven, we're gonna learn everything like that. And now they can't even daven and learn. So what do? the two of them get up and they said, you know what? If this is what Hashem did for us, and now we can't even daven and learn. We'll also be makabel. That too is from Hashem. That's the Gzardim. That's what Hashem wants. Then okay, we won't even be able to daven and learn. And they get up and they start dancing around the bucket. And the other inmates look at them and of course think that they're absolutely from Mars, like totally like they've gone off the deep end. They're totally crazy. But okay, whatever. Like they're dancing around. And they're literally like, we're going to be makabel, whatever Hashem does for us, the simcha. They're dancing around this bucket. All the other inmates kind of join in like, okay, right, we're dancing around this bucket. They don't know what's flying. And all of a sudden the guards are hearing this hullabaloo and they come and they're like, what's going on here? They get mad and they remove the bucket. What do you think we're going to let you be happy, right? And then at the end of the day, they were able to daven and learn. It's that whatever Hashem sends, how much can we be makabel? That if this is what it is, it's from Hashem. If that's what it is, it's from Hashem. Can I say Nasa v'nishma from all circumstances? Because that's really what Kabbalat HaTorah is. So of course, when we have the opportunity to learn Torah, what is chus? When we have the opportunity to support Torah, what is chus? But being makabel Torah as Nasa v'nishma is something that every single one of us can do. And it's not always so easy to do from all of life's realities, every single, the day in and day out. But can I be makabel Torah? Can I use this Shavuos as we're approaching to make this my phrase, to really live life by Nasa v'nishma? To really say, I will always accept to do whatever Hashem asks of me to do, and where I find myself, that's what Hashem is asking me to do. Whatever the life circumstance is, whether it's, the smoother moments, whether it's the less smooth moments, whether it's, from shalom in my relationships in life, whether it's from, sometimes we have the rifts in our relationships. Things happen. That's life. And can I accept whatever the circumstances are, whether I understand why and what's happening in the bigger picture of things, or I don't? Now, this phrase of Nasa v'nishma, right, we always hold on a pedestal like Nasa v'nishma and the crowns of Nasa v'nishma. And the Medrash says that it wasn't one crown. And actually, I loved it because one year when my son was in Gan, usually like before Shavuos, I don't know, they have like the Torah party or whatever it is. So they come home with a crown and it says Nasa v'nishma. And one year actually, they came home with it. He came home with this crown that was really like two crowns on it, Nasa v'nishma. I'm like, oh, that's correct to the Medrash, right? Because really that's what it says, that the Malachim gave two crowns. One for Nasa, one for Nishma, because each word had a value. It was valuable that they said Nasa, and it was valuable that they said Nishma. Now, if we think about it, that actually brings up a question on the phrase, because the value that Klal Yisrael said Nasa, we will do, meaning even though I don't understand yet, and I haven't learned yet, and I don't have clarity yet, they're saying I'm 100% committed. We'll have emunah in whatever Hashem says because Hashem said it, even if I don't understand. So that's like, wow, that's worth crowning, right? Like, that's hard to accept when I don't understand. So that's worth crowning. But they got a crown. It was a whole nother crown of Nishma. And right? If you think about it, what is so special about saying, I'll hear? Like, if you're willing to accept Hashem when you don't understand and you don't have clarity, so then, like, of course, you'll also hear, like, we all do want to understand, right? So what was so special about the fact that they said Nishma and will hear? And what Nishma adds is the commitment to continued growth. It's that they didn't only say, I'll accept and I'll have emunah, whatever it is. But they said, I'm committed and I promise that I'm going to keep on hearing more. And I'm going to keep on coming closer. And I'm going to keep on growing, and I'm going to keep on accepting, and I'm going to keep on hearing as the new things are sent to me. As life continues to move on, I'm going to keep on loving Hashem in all the circumstances. So it wasn't a commitment just to now. I'll be makabel now. It was a commitment to now into the future, throughout my whole life. That is something very, very tremendous. Because what that's saying is I'm going to be makabel o malchus shamayim to work on the intimacy of my nisuin with Hashem. So fine, we got engaged. Fine, I walked down the chuppah, right? I'm not only committing for now. I'm committing for the rest of time, for the rest of life, for the yichud rooms, for the nisuin part. When it's not all like excitement and mazel tovs and wows, I'm going to keep on hearing. I'm going to keep on being makabel through the hardships, through the pains. And that really just to end off with another thought. I'm going to see this Shalom and others speak about that. We know Chag HaShavuos, right? Shavuos has a lot of different names. There's Chag HaShavuos, there's HaTorah, Chag HaKasir, Chag HaBikurim, Atzeres, right? Lots of names for Shavuos. So we call it Chag HaShavuos. What's the general reason of Chag HaShavuos? What does it mean? The weeks, right? We're counting the 7 weeks till we get to Kabbalat HaTorah, right? The counting till we get there of these weeks. That's the general understanding of Shavuot. The Nesir Shalom brings another understanding that Shavuos also could come from the shorish of a Shavu'ah. A Shavu'ah is what? An oath, a promise. Exactly. Meaning, then another understanding of this holiday is that it's the holiday of the promises. Notice it's in the plural. So it's not one promise, not one oath. It's the holiday of promises, the holiday of swears. Meaning this was the day when we each individually took oath, promised our commitment to Hashem, promised our commitment to the path that I'm accepting. I'm saying, Nasa v'nishma, I don't get to choose, that He chooses for me. But I'm nonetheless promising through an oath to follow Him with love, to follow Him with acceptance, to follow Him with the commitment, because I have the emunah that He's leading me down the right path. But it's 2 promises, because when we committed through the Nasa v'nishma, so Hashem is promising back. He's making that bris with Klal Yisrael that He's never going to exchange us for a different nation. Meaning, life will have that sometimes I might slip, not accept. I might have a hard time with that commitment. I might say, throw my hands, I can't do this anymore. But there was an oath. And I'm going to return back to my side of the oath of, but I commit, I will keep on hearing. So I'm going to keep on getting up, glass blowing it back together, moving forward. Again, knowing the dance of pushing versus just, I'm going to do this calmly. I need to rest today and pull myself together. And I'm committing, I'm promising myself as the kala to consummate this relationship and to build it to more and more intimate levels with my relationship with Hashem. And therefore Hashem promises us back, even with the falls, we are His. And He's not going to exchange us. Also when we fall. And that's really what Shavuot is about. That's really like the essence of the Kabbalat HaTorah, is the Kabbalat Hashem. It's the Kabbalah of this wedding, of this marriage. It's the day of the commitment, of being, of creating this bris, creating this covenant of intimacy with Hashem. And every moment that we do, whether it's in these moments of spiritual Omer that we're putting extra energy into the counting up of building my neshama to get to its potential level, whether it's now or whether it's throughout the year, every moment that we do that we do accept, we're more and more Makabel Torah. That's what it is. We're more and more standing true to Mamad Har Sinai, to the potential that Hashem knows that our unique neshama holds. So I hope that was just some thoughts so that Shavuos and Kabbalat HaTorah could be broader than just the Limud HaTorah. What is the message of Torah? The message of Torah is really a relationship with Hashem. And that's something that we can continuously, each in our own, and it doesn't matter where we live, what our stages, what our ages, and everything. That's something that we always want to be continuously working through the Nasa Nishma of Kabbalat HaTorah. It's really nice to see you all. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Sure.
Do you think that the attitude of feminism?
Do you want to be, like I could turn it up? You know, if anyone's even. I don't really know. There's not like an option to stop it. Okay, so go ahead.
Do you think that the idea of feminism, which affect us, is like some more, some less, but in general, like women being less okay with being as accepting as they once were, of like the dominance of that, affect our ability to be Kabbalah.
Are you asking meaning because really, like what I'm hearing is that you're coming from a recognition that a woman's nida is to be in the Kabbalah, that's who we are in our essence, right? Everyone's supposed to be Makabel from Hashem, but the beauty of femininity is that we're in essence Makablos. We're, so to speak, a mashal that's often used is, let's say, the moon to the sun, right? A sun is an influencer, is the giver, as opposed to the moon is the receiver and reflector, right? The moon doesn't have light of its own. It receives and reflects the light of the sun. And that can be a paradigm, a mashal for a relationship, or the differences between a man and a woman is, are you the nosing or are you the makabel? So I hear totally where you're coming from. Like, if we're totally embracing that midah of being a mekabelah, so then it most definitely enhances our ability to be mekabel throughout, as opposed to if that is a greater challenge and, throughout all other areas of life, so then it's harder to be mekabel Hashem. I'll add to that actually that this is one of the ideas behind our bracha of Sha'asani Kirtzono, who has made me in accordance to his will, that there is something to us as women, like us as the feminine personality that actually is more in line, if you want to say, with Hashem's will. And the reason is because, so to speak, if our nature is to be the moon to the sun throughout all relationships, if we're good at being Mekabel throughout this worldly relationships, so then Shasani Kirtzono it's more natural for us to be Mekabel from Hashem, as opposed to a man. He's supposed to be the nostain and the sun with regard to human relationships, or let's say within marriage or the male-female dynamic. But then all of a sudden, when it comes to Hashem, he needs to switch it up, because then obviously the man to Hashem is that he becomes the moon who's supposed to be Makabel from Hashem, the sun, right? So then that's going to be harder. We are Shani Kirtzono. It's more natural to our wiring. Exactly. So it is interesting, your question, like if femininity at large has somewhat moved away from that personality, then I definitely hear what you're saying, that it will create that similar challenge throughout, including in our more smooth, natural ability to be Makabel from Hashem. which really, can I comment? Does it mean that it's not possible? Of course, it doesn't mean that it's not possible. I would say the opposite. To a certain extent, I think it's a matter of embracing our femininity. We are female. That means it is, you use the word wiring. It is in our wiring to be Makablos. So even when we might be faced with a challenge that maybe, like you're saying, is true, might have been affected by the reality of the world, right? But that's so amazing. We're so lucky that we can always, more easily, I would say, choose to return and embrace that which is within us. It is within us to be Makablos. Like, there's no question about it. Because that is our nature. And this idea comes up a lot. Also, it comes up within marriage. Meaning, in times when it was very, very much like the obvious and natural that we are the Makablos to the Nosein, so then that does something. When we're living in generations where we're equally, giving influencers, shakers of the world, in those sorts of positions, then even when we walk through the front door back to the relationship within the dynamic of husband and wife, right? Obviously, there will be a certain amount of challenge to suddenly make that switch and turn back into the makabel klepei our husband, right? So the same way that takes maybe more effort in our generation as it did, many generations ago when women weren't necessarily leaving so to speak, leaving the front door, right? So then it was always, that's all they had was they were the makabelas. So then you could say it's the same thing. It might bring a certain challenge that in many, many dynamics and relationships, we are being the nim, whatever, right? I wouldn't say that it's not a possibility. I would say the opposite, like go deep and embrace the femininity and find that really it's 100% there because that's Hashem gave it to us as our nature. Any other thoughts, questions? All right. You can enjoy the rest of the day for those who are staying. Does everyone have lunch break? Can you ask Deborah when I should be here? What year is it?
Oh yeah, it's like weird.